You call this clean? You cannot clean the snow. Get that thing out of my sight.
I am doing my job, lady.
You cannot clean this snow now. Get out!
I didn't expect a snowstorm to turn my own street into a fight zone. But that's exactly where I ended up. My name's Oliver. I've spent most of my adult life pushing snow for a living. Not a big company, just one truck, one plow, and a list of neighbors who need their driveways opened when winter decides to bury the mountains overnight. It's honest work. Cold hands, early mornings, long days. But it keeps people moving when everything else shuts down. I bought my place years ago. Little house, extra space for tools, room to breathe. Back then, the neighborhood felt calm. Retired couples, quiet mornings, people who waved instead of watched. If someone's car got stuck, 3 people showed up with shovels before you even asked. The HOA existed, but barely. It was more like a suggestion box than a rule book. Small dues, casual meetings, nobody obsessed over tiny stuff. Living up here teaches you that survival matters more than appearances. Then a new woman moved into the biggest house overlooking the street. Not loud at first, just organized, focused, asking lots of questions. Within months, she had the HOA under her control. Promised order, promised higher property value, promised standards. Most people ignored the vote. I wasn't even in town when it happened. At first, the changes were harmless. Holiday limits, lawn rules, mild irritation, nothing more. Then she shifted her attention to vehicles. Work trucks suddenly became a problem. Visibility rules, overnight limits. I started parking creatively just to stay off her radar. Winter hit hard soon after. Storm after storm. My phone buzzing nonstop. Neighbors needing help before dawn. I barely slept. My truck became part of the street noise. Engine humming, blades scraping, lights flashing through the dark. That's when I found the first note tucked under my wiper. Polite tone. Official language. Permission required. I ignored it and kept working. The second note wasn't polite. Threats. Warnings. That's when I knew this wasn't going to stay quiet. So I showed up to the next HOA meeting and walked straight into a power play I didn't see coming. The meeting was held in the HOA ladies' oversized living room. High ceilings, huge windows, fireplace big enough to roast an animal. About a dozen people showed up, mostly newer residents. The older neighbors stopped coming months ago. They said the meetings felt more like courtroom arguments than neighborhood conversations. She stood near a folding table stacked with papers, printed agendas, highlighted lines, a clipboard ready like a shield. Agenda Item 7, she said, reading slowly. Unauthorized commercial vehicle activity on HOA streets. Every head turned toward me. I was still wearing my work jacket and boots. Snow melted onto her clean hardwood floors. I didn't apologize for it. She said my truck had been seen operating repeatedly inside the neighborhood. That it caused noise, damage, liability. She stacked the words like bricks. These roads are public, I said. I live here. I'm just driving to my clients. She adjusted her glasses without breaking eye contact. Our dues maintain these streets, she said calmly. Your heavy truck ads where that everyone pays for. The county plows these roads, I replied. You can't block someone from using public streets. She flipped a page like she'd been waiting for that line. According to updated HOA rules I'd never seen. The board now had authority to regulate commercial traffic that created disturbance or damage. I told her I hadn't voted on any changes. She said missing a vote meant accepting the outcome. Then she slid the numbers across the table like a receipt. A monthly fee, plus a large damage deposit. The room went quiet. Even her supporters shifted in their chairs. That's extortion, I said. That's the cost of living in a quality community, she replied. Take it or leave it. I left. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at bills. Fuel, insurance, repairs. My margins were already thin. Those fees would crush me. The next morning, fresh snow covered everything again. I fired up the truck before sunrise and headed toward a neighbor who needed help for a medical appointment. Halfway down the road, I saw her car parked sideways across the street. Hazard lights blinking. The HOA lady stood in the road with her phone raised, recording. "You're being fined," she called out. Another violation. I stared at her through the cracked window, and for the first time, I realized this wasn't about rules anymore. It was about stopping me. I sat there with the engine running. Snow drifted across the hood in slow waves. The heater pushed warm air against my frozen fingers. The steering wheel vibrated lightly under my palms. The HOA lady didn't move. Her phone stayed locked on me like she wanted proof more than sense. Like catching me mattered more than helping anyone. "She has a medical appointment," I said. "She needs her driveway cleared. She can hire someone else," the HOA lady replied, "or fill out a hardship form. The board reviews those quarterly." "It's January," I said. She shrugged. I felt something tighten in my chest. Anger, frustration, maybe both. Every instinct told me to just drive forward and end the conversation. But I'd seen what HOA fines could do to people. Lawyers. Years of stress over small lines in a rule book. She had money. I had a mortgage and a truck payment. I put the truck in reverse. The backup alarm beeped through the quiet street as I pulled away. The HOA lady lowered her phone and smiled like she'd just won something important. I went home instead. By 8 in the morning, the call started. The neighbor I couldn't help sounded worried, but kind. She apologized like this was her fault. Another family called next. Then another. The storm had gotten worse. Driveways buried again. Streets slick. I had to tell each one the same thing. I couldn't work inside the HOA anymore. They could meet me at the edge of the main road, and I'd clear what I could from there. But I couldn't drive my truck through the neighborhood. Most people understood. A few didn't. One person snapped at me like I'd caused the whole mess myself. One neighbor cried. That one stayed with me. By the end of the week, 6 regular clients were gone. Word traveled fast in a small community. Stories changed as they moved. Some people thought I'd lost my license. Others heard I'd been fined into oblivion. The HOA lady told her version, that she'd protected the neighborhood from illegal activity. I kept my head down and focused on work outside the area. But every time I drove past the neighborhood entrance and saw snow piled high inside, it felt wrong. Like something broken had been left that way on purpose. And winter wasn't even close to finished yet. The warning started 3 days before the storm hit. Weather alerts buzzed on my phone nonstop. A massive system rolling down from the north. Heavy snow, dangerous winds, whiteout conditions. The kind of storm that shuts everything down. People rushed to grocery stores. Gas stations filled up. Hotvia shelves emptied fast. I spent those days prepping my truck, checking belts, topping fluids, making sure the blade was tight, laying out spare gear in the garage where I could grab it fast. My clients outside the HOA booked extra time. Premium rates for guaranteed service. I knew I'd be working nonstop once it hit. Part of me kept thinking about the neighborhood I couldn't enter anymore. The streets inside were narrow, tree-lined, prone to drifting. If they didn't get cleared fast, they'd disappear under layers of packed snow. But that wasn't my problem anymore. The storm hit late Tuesday night. By Wednesday morning, everything was buried. My own driveway had almost 3 feet of snow. It took over an hour just to clear a path out. The main roads were chaos. County plows ran nonstop, but couldn't keep up. Side streets vanished under deep drifts. I worked 18 straight hours clearing driveways and small roads outside the HOA zone. Good money. Exhausting work. My body felt hollow by the time I finally shut the truck down after midnight. When I got home, my garage door was half buried again. Snow stacked against the siding. The wind still howled through the trees. I collapsed in a bed without even eating. My phone rang at 6 in the morning. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. A calm, professional voice came through the speaker. She said she was calling about the school bus route inside my neighborhood. They couldn't get through. The streets hadn't been cleared. There were kids waiting who couldn't be picked up. I stared at the ceiling, still half asleep, already knowing where this was headed, and wishing it wasn't. By 7:30, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Parents from the neighborhood started calling first. Some I knew, some I didn't. Word had spread fast that the bus couldn't get through and that I was the one who normally kept the streets open. One dad sounded exhausted more than angry. He said his kids were late for school again. His boss was already texting him about missing work. Another caller wasn't as calm. He accused me of being petty, said I was punishing children over a personal fight. I tried explaining the situation, that I wasn't allowed to operate inside the HOA anymore, that I'd already been warned about fines and legal trouble. Most people didn't care about rules. They cared about getting their kids to school. Then the school transportation office called back. They said they couldn't reroute buses into unsafe streets. Liability rules, union drivers, insurance policies. If the road wasn't cleared, the bus wouldn't enter. Simple as that. They asked if I could make an exception and clear the streets just this once. I stared at my truck sitting in the driveway, snow crusted along the wheel wells. The blades still streak. With eyes from last night's run, I wanted to say yes. Muscle memory almost made me grab my jacket. But all I could picture was the HOA lady standing in front of my truck with her phone raised. The notes on my windshield. The quiet smile when I backed away. One wrong move, and this could spiral into fines I couldn't fight. I told the school I couldn't risk it. The silence on the other end felt heavy. Around noon, something strange happened. The HOA lady hadn't posted any updates in the community group. No announcements. No instructions. No confident rule reminders. Just quiet. That wasn't like her. By early afternoon, the neighborhood entrance started clogging up with frustrated parents trying to drive their kids out through unplowed streets. Tires spinning, cars sliding, people getting stuck. A small jam formed near the corner lot where the snow drifted deepest. I drove past once on a job outside the area and saw the mess building. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just inconvenience anymore. It was turning into a problem nobody could control. By the second morning, the neighborhood looked stranded. Fresh snow had layered over yesterday's mess, sealing tire ruts into hard ice. Cars sat crooked in driveways where people had given up trying to leave. The narrow streets inside the HOA looked untouched, quiet, buried, stuck in time. I could see it all from the main road when I passed on jobs. It didn't feel like winning. It felt wrong. My phone stayed busy. Parents still calling. A few apologizing for yelling the day before. Some just tired and out of options. One mother told me her kid had missed 2 tests already. Another said her employer was threatening write-ups. A man asked if I could at least clear the entrance so people could escape. Every call twisted something inside my chest. This neighborhood used to look out for each other. Shovels, coffee, laughter in the cold. Now everyone sounded stressed and sharp and scared. I kept thinking about just going in and plowing anyway. Just one pass, just enough to open the road. But then the voice of the HOA lady floated back into my head. Calm, confident, certain she was right. I imagined the fine letters, the certified mail, the slow bleed of money and time. Doing the right thing shouldn't feel like stepping into a trap. Around mid-afternoon, I noticed flashing lights near the neighborhood entrance. A county truck had pulled over. Not a plow, a utility vehicle. 2 workers stood by the drifted entrance, talking into radios. I slowed as I passed and caught pieces of the conversation. Complaints, access issues, emergency response delays. That word stuck with me. Emergency. This wasn't just about school anymore. Later that evening, a neighbor I hadn't heard from in years texted me. She said someone had slipped on an unplowed sidewalk and needed help getting out. Nothing serious, but it could have been. I sat in my truck long after reading that message, engine ticking as it cooled. The anger I'd carried for weeks started draining out, replaced by something heavier. Responsibility. Not because I caused this, but because I could end it. And knowing that made the choice even harder. It happened just after sunrise. My phone buzzed while I was tightening a loose bracket on the plow. I wiped grease off my hands and checked the screen. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something told me not to. Hello. There was a pause on the other end. Short breath. Control, but thin. This is the HOA lady, she said. Her voice didn't have its usual edge. No confidence. No lecture waiting behind it. Just tension. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She went straight to the point. The streets need to be cleared. Immediately, I leaned against the truck and looked at the sky. Pale winter light stretched across the driveway. Cold and clean and quiet. I'm not authorized to operate inside the HOA, I said. Another pause. We can make an exception. She replied, temporarily. That word hit wrong. Temporary. Like this was still her favor. I reminded her about the warnings, the notes, the threat of fines and legal action. The meeting where she told me I was damaging HOA property. Her breathing got sharper. The situation has changed, she said. We have complaints. The county has contacted us. There are safety concerns. There it was. Pressure from above. I'm willing to help, I said slowly. But I need written permission. No fines. No penalties. No retroactive nonsense. Silence stretched. Then tight, fine. I told her to email it. 10 minutes later, the message came through. Short, clean, no attitude, just authorization. I read it twice. Then a third time. I climbed into the truck and turned the key. The engine rumbled awake like it had been waiting. As I pulled toward the neighborhood entrance, I felt something shift inside me. Not victory, control. When I crossed the boundary line into the HOA streets again, the snow didn't look like an enemy. It looked like a job, and I was about to remind everyone exactly what that meant. The blade hit snow like tearing cloth. A thick wall of packed drift peeled away as the plow pushed forward, snow rolling off in heavy waves. The sound echoed between houses, metal scraping ice, engine growling low and steady. Driveway after driveway opened up. Tires appeared from under white blankets. Sidewalk edges reemerged. Mailboxes stood upright again instead of buried. People stepped outside bundled in coats and hats, watching like something had been brought back to life. A few waved. One neighbor gave me a thumbs up. Another mouthed thank you through fog glass. The street started breathing again. I worked slow and careful. No rusing, no shortcuts, clean lines, wide turns, making sure everything was done right. Not because I owed the HOA lady anything, because this was my work. Halfway through the second street, I saw her, standing near the corner lot, clipboard tucked against her chest, phone in her hand. She didn't step into the road this time, didn't raise the phone, didn't say a word. She just watched. The snow that had backed her into a corner was disappearing under my blade, control slipping quietly with every pass. By the time I finished the loop, cars were already moving, parents loading kids, engines starting, doors slamming, life restarting. The school bus rolled in about 20 minutes later, yellow cutting through the white street like a signal flare. It moved slowly, carefully, but it moved. That was the moment it really hit her. Not an argument, not in a meeting, not on paper, in motion. I parked near the entrance and shut the truck down. Steam curled from a hood into the cold air. My arms felt heavy. My hands still buzzed from vibration. The HOA lady avoided eye contact as she walked past. No epaligi. No thank you. But she didn't say another word about permits after that winter. No more notes. No more warnings. No more standing in the road. The street stayed open. And sometimes, quiet control says more than any fight ever could. Spring didn't arrive all at once. The snow pulled back slowly. Dirty piles shrinking into gray slush. Lawns reappearing in patches. Streets drying into cracked asphalt and gravel lines. The neighborhood felt different without the pressure of winter pressing down on it. People lingered outside more, walking dogs, talking across fences, kids riding bikes in slow, wobbly circles. And the HOA lady? She stayed inside. Her curtain stayed drawn more often than not. Her driveway stayed empty during the day. When she did come out, it was fast. Head down, straight to the car. Gone. No clipboard anymore. No neighborhood patrols. No surprise inspections. The power she'd built for herself didn't survive being exposed by real life. Once people realized the street didn't collapse without her control, something shifted. Conversations started happening that hadn't before. Small things at first. Why do we even need approval for this? Who actually voted for that rule? Why are we paying these fees if nothing improves? People started showing up to meetings again. Not angry, just awake, asking questions, requesting transparency, wanting actual explanations instead of polished authority voice answers. She didn't handle that well. Meetings got shorter, more defensive, less confident. Then one night, the agenda didn't get sent out. The meeting got canceled. No explanation. The next month, the same thing happened again. By summer, the HOA barely existed in anything except name, and nobody seemed to miss it. I went back to doing what I always did. Early mornings, weather alerts, thermos coffee, the quiet hum of the truck warming up before sunrise. Neighbors wave more now, not because of rules, because of trust. Mrs. Allen started leaving homemade soup on my porch after storms. The William kids shoveled my walkway without being asked. Tom would text updates about road conditions just because he cared. The street felt like a community again instead of a checklist. Sometimes I'd catch the HOA lady watching from her window as I drove past, not angry anymore, just tired, maybe even embarrassed. I didn't take satisfaction in that. I just felt finished. Some battles don't end with victory speeches or apologies. They end when control loses its audience, and winter stopped being a weapon. By April, the snow was mostly gone. Dirty piles shrinking along the curbs. Mud showing through where winter had ruled everything for months. But the damage the HOA lady caused didn't melt with the snow. People were tired, angry, quiet in a way that meant something was coming. The streets still weren't being cleared right when late storms hit. Parents were still walking their kids half a mile to catch the bus on the main road. Deliveries were still getting delayed. Emergency crews still hesitated before entering the neighborhood. And everyone kept asking the same question. Where did all the snow money go? Every house had paid extra fees all winter, supposedly for professional snow service. But nobody had ever seen a contract. No tracks, no company names, no invoices, just excuses. One evening, an older neighbor knocked on my door. He'd lived on the street longer than anyone. The kind of guy who remembered when the road was still dirt. Oliver, he said quietly, something isn't right. He told me the HOA lady refused to show the financial records at the last meeting. Changed the subject. Ended the meeting early. Walked out. That's when people finally stopped being afraid of her. A petition started circulating. Neighbors signing their names. Demanding a full financial review. House after house signed. Even people who used to defend her added their names. When she realized how many people were pushing back, she announced a special meeting. Said she'd bring all the documents. Said everything would be explained. The night came. The room was packed. More neighbors than I'd ever seen in one place before. People standing along the walls. Sitting on stairs. Leaning in doorways. But the HOA lady never showed up. No message. No call. Nothing. Someone drove by her house later. Lights off. Car gone. That's when the fear turned into something heavier. The next morning, a police report was filed. A few days later, the truth started coming out. The HOA account had been drained. Not just the snow fees, everything. Tens of thousands gone. Fake expenses. Fake vendors. Money moved into private accounts. She hadn't just bullied the neighborhood. She'd been stealing from it. When I heard the news, I didn't feel victory. I felt tired. All those fights, all those threats, all the fear people carried through winter. And it had all been built on lies. Investigators tracked her down weeks later in another state. She tried to disappear quietly. It didn't work. Charges followed. Court dates. Statements from neighbors. Bank records. The story was suddenly bigger than our street. Bigger than snow. Bigger than one angry woman with a clipboard. The HOA collapsed soon after. Nobody wanted it anymore. The streets went back to county care. Neighbors handled things directly again, like we used to. Slowly, the neighborhood healed. The school bus came back. Deliveries normalized. Emergency access stabilized. Mrs. Allen got her medication without stress again. The William family stopped hauling their kids through snowbanks every morning. And the street felt human again. One afternoon, I stood by my truck and watched kids ride their bikes where snowbanks once towered. No rules being shouted. No threats taped to windshields. No fear hanging in the air. Just normal life. That's when it finally hit me. The storm didn't destroy this neighborhood. Control did. And once that control broke, everything started breathing again. After everything settled, the street felt lighter. People waved again. Kids played outside. Neighbors talked instead of watching each other. Mrs. Allen smiled when I cleared her driveway one last time that season. She brought out a thermos and handed me a cup like she used to. The Williams loaded their car without rushing. No panic in their voices for once. Normal life was back. And that mattered more than any argument or victory ever could. I still run the same truck. Still wake up before sunrise when storms roll in. Still push snow so people can get where they need to go. The only real difference now is nobody tries to stop me from helping. What this whole mess taught me wasn't about rules or power. It was about how fast a neighborhood can fall apart when people forget they're supposed to look out for each other, and how fast it can come back when they remember. So I keep showing up, storm after storm, because in the end, communities aren't built on paperwork or control. They're built on people showing up when it matters. This keeps your heart, but sounds more like lived reflection than a slogan.